Her resume spans Hollywood's biggest blockbusters.
I did Avatar, I was in Stranger Things. I've done a lot of the Transformers, Spiderman, one of the Star Wars series. So there's been a lot on the resume.
To call her one of the bravest athletes on the planet feels like an understatement.
There's always nerves and fear, but I guess I'm in the business of overcoming fears.
In this conversation, award-winning stuntwoman and travel show host Alice Ford opens up about working with the stars.
We had Stanley Tucci. Mark Wahlberg is like a gem, I love him.
As well as real challenges, love.
If you're on set at 6 a.m. and you go home at 10 p.m., the only thing you want to do is like maybe put some food in your mouth and then go to sleep.
Life on the road.
I'm pretty good at just kind of picking up and making it feel like home wherever I am.
And a courageous reset.
I knew going into that, like there's a high likelihood that like this is gonna suck a lot, but that's what we're paid to do.
Welcome to Game Day with Shay, where sports meets design. I'm Shay Holland, HGTV designer and sports journalist. This is the show where your home, your style, and your love of the game finally get to play on the same team. Hit subscribe and let's dive into this episode. Alice, I am so excited to have you here today. Now, your bio says that you have hiked the world's tallest mountains. You have swam with sharks. What did it take for you to become a stunt woman?
I grew up in the middle of nowhere in New Hampshire, a very small town, surrounded by mountains, lakes, rivers. My dad was super adventurous, so my upbringing was very much outdoors, free range, I call myself. And I spent a lot of time hiking and exploring as a kid. When I went to college, I did 3 sports: gymnastics, track and field, and diving. And so those were the fundamentals that got me into stunts. Obviously, stunts is a very athletic profession, and you have to have an athletic prowess to get into it and be successful. So I was really perfectly suited for getting into stunts with the acrobatic background and running and diving, all of the things that really craft excellent body awareness. So when I heard about stunts, I didn't know what that was growing up. I don't know that I'd ever even heard of a stuntman, maybe. I did love Indiana Jones, but it was never on my radar. I lived in New Orleans for a little bit. I got into doing extra work and also doing TV hosting. And when I did that, I met a bunch of people in the film industry, and they all said, "Oh, why aren't you a stunt woman?"
Because they knew you were so athletic?
Yeah, because at the time I was still pole vaulting and I was trying to make the 2012 Olympic trials. So they knew that I was athletic. And so they were like, "Well, why don't you do that for a job?" And I was like, is that something like that's very lucrative, and how do you get into it? Luckily, I already had the background, so then I went into learning more Taekwondo and karate, and then fighting reactions for fight scenes and choreography for fight scenes, which wasn't exactly my forte coming out of gymnastics. But my first job in stunts was on a gymnastics show, which was called Make It or Break It. Probably dating myself a little. But it was a drama on ABC Family about girls trying to make the Olympic team. And so that was my first ever show, which was here in Los Angeles.
So how did you get that show?
It's a long story, and I'll try to condense it into something shorter. One summer, I was, by happenstance, working in the La Biennale, which is the largest symposium for contemporary art in the world. They usually have it in Venice, Italy, which is where it was that year. USA Track and Field was asked to bring some runners to this to be part of a performance for the United States. Countries have their own kind of art exhibits, and they'll create these crazy contemporary art pieces. So that year, the United States Artists Collaboration basically had an overturned tank. On top of the tank was a treadmill. They needed runners to run on the treadmills. Then they also had these airplane seats, and they had gymnasts performing on those. And then they had a third room that was like a different kind of piece of performance art. So they went to USA Track and Field and said, "Hey, could you send us some runners?" Anyways, I saw the email. I replied. I said, "I'm available to go to Italy for the summer." Wow. So I ended up getting this unpaid job, but I got to go be in Venice for a month and run on this treadmill on this tank. Well, one of the other gentlemen that was there was the gymnast performing on the airplane seats. He happened to have been working on Make It or Break It in the previous seasons as a stuntman, and was had been an Olympic gymnast. And so I was talking to him and said, "Oh, I really wanted to get into stunts. Oh my gosh, I do stunts. Oh my gosh, well if that show ever casts again, like, please let me know. A couple months later, he reached out to me and said, hey, Make It or Break It is back for a third season. And if you have a tape of you doing gymnastics, please send it to this woman that is doing the casting. And I said, okay, great. So I still tumbled. So I made a video, I sent it to her, and she said, great, we'd love for you to come to LA and like be one of the girls' doubles for gymnastics and like come and train, and I'll review your skills and blah, blah, blah. And if you're up for it, you know, after I've reviewed your skills in person, like, we'll hire you. So that was how I got that job. Like,
that's
totally,
crazy.
Totally all these like random things just fell into place in order for that to happen.
Pretty incredible, especially because there you are growing up in New Hampshire, right? And you didn't really know that that was even a career path.
No, definitely not.
So what was it about it that you thought, oh, this could be, was it that you wanted to be in TV film? Was it?
As an athlete that was in sports that are not televised heavily, don't have any sort of professional prowess after you get out of college, I love performing and I love doing sports. And so one thing that I think not enough people talk about is like the loss that you feel when you leave high school or college and you are like a high level athlete and then you basically have to stop. So this to me was, oh wow, I can basically keep competing, so to speak, in a sport-like thing and actually get paid for it, which was never an option in gymnastics, track, or diving. You know, I wasn't gonna get paid for any of those. I mean, I was a professional pole vaulter, but I think I made like $500, so. So yeah, this was like an incredible opportunity to be able to take all of my athletics, still practice them, and actually earn a living. So it was kind of the best of everything.
Right. So what are your parents saying when you're calling and going, hey, I'm going to be a stunt person?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what my mom thought. My dad thought it was super cool. I guess he must have known what it was. But I mean, they're not Hollywood people. So, I mean, it's such a different world, like living in LA than it was where I grew up. But yeah, they thought it was really interesting. And my mom always, I mean, she's funny because she calls videos podcasts. She's 70, so, but she definitely tells all of her friends that I'm in movies and thinks it's pretty cool, so.
Oh yeah. Definitely. Are there any movies you can give us some inside scoop on? Because you just finished up Avatar not too long ago.
Yeah, I did Avatar,
right?
I was in Stranger Things. I've done a lot of the Transformers, Spiderman, one of the Star Wars series. So there's been a lot.
And are you stunt doubling for specific people in those, or are you doing?
Not always. I also do a lot of the behind the scenes stunt stuff. So we call it like the stunt core team. It's usually a group of, depending on the movie, 6 to 12 people that are on the run of the entire movie. So we're helping with fight choreography, training the actors, and then putting all the different gags together. So like if somebody needs to get like ratcheted across the room on a wire, we're basically setting that up, figuring out R&D. It's basically all the R&D for like all the scenes that you see in the movies. If you're on that team, you start working on the movie maybe 2 or 3 months before the movie begins to do all that research and design on all the different scenes. And you're cutting videos every week, sending it to the director of the movies. They're saying, no, we don't like this. Yes, we like this. And then you're going back to the drawing board, so to speak, figuring out, okay, how can we redo the choreography of this fight to incorporate this, that, or the other? And so a lot of the times I'm not only helping with all of that, but I'm the guinea pig sometimes as like the woman. If there's a female cast member that we need to basically be in any of those scenes, that would a lot of the times be me, but also I'm helping with running the ratchets and the wire gags and stuff like that. So I do that a lot, and I've done that on a lot of the bigger movies, but I also double a lot of different people. But I'm not anyone specific's double. I double a lot of people. If they're 5'6" and blonde, it might be me.
Yeah, I have so many questions because I know you also host and travel and all that, but I want to stick with the stunt for just a minute because that's actually something I was fascinated with when I first came to LA.
Yeah.
And so what does a typical day, like even now, look like? Because I know you're always preparing for your next role. Like, are you working out all 8 hours a day, or what does it look like?
So in the beginning of my career, yeah, I mean, I would get up, all of your normal daily morning things, obviously. Go to the gym, do regular kind of workouts. I would meet up with some of my training partners and we would do like boxing workouts or jujitsu or karate or taekwondo, kicking, jumping, twisting, doing all kinds of different movements that we would sometimes have to do in movies. Usually like later in the afternoon or in the evening, do like a gymnastics class. There's like open gyms sometimes in New Orleans where I used to live, and then here in Los Angeles, different gyms have that kind of stuff. And there's different gyms like Tempest, like for free running, that a lot of people go to and train. Mostly it's staying in shape, in the best shape that you can be. Also like taking driving classes, riding a motorcycle. There's a track up in Apple Valley that people go to that I've gone to quite often too, where you can like drift your car. Keeping current in a lot of different skills all at the same time and constantly being, oh, okay, I haven't done that in a while, I should go and brush up my skills in that. And because I also do the rigging on a lot of these movies, it's like making sure I like remembering how to tie all the different knots and fly people across the room and set up different ropes. And so rock climbing as well, water stuff. So there's all of these things, and you kind of have to be good in a lot of different areas unless you're a specialist, which there are people that like only do driving or only do motorcycle or only do like horse stunts. And those are like the specialty people, but I kind of do everything. And so as a jack of all trades, you kind of have to dabble in a little bit of everything and make sure that you're constantly keeping up with all of those things as well. But now, you know, fast forward, I've been in the industry over 10 years now. A lot of that is just maintaining. So like kickboxing once a week, regular gym pretty much every day. If I know I have a movie coming up with specific skills where I know I'm gonna have to be like riding a dirt bike or doing a lot of driving, it'll be like incorporating that into the weekly routine as well. And then obviously like eating healthy and keeping up with all of your relationships is really important in stunts. I think one thing a lot of people don't know is that stunt people, unlike actors, don't have agents. So like the only way you get jobs is your network. So if you're not a nice person or you're annoying on set or you're not good, like those are the things that will get you not hired again, because it's all about people liking you and wanting to bring you back onto their team to fill the role. So it's not only just about your skills, but it's about your personality a little bit too. But if you're not staying in touch with people, you're out of sight, out of mind. And then when a job comes up, if you're not the first person somebody thinks about just by happenstance, you're not going to get called for a job.
Right. So was there any stunt, like when you first went to do it, you were just like, oh my God, what did I get myself into?
Not necessarily like, oh my gosh, this is awful, I'm gonna die, but you have a level of fear with every stunt if you've never done it before. And I will say, like with talking about all the R&D I've done on movies, that is also not that common for you to be able to go and actually practice the stunt before you're performing it on set. So if you're on that R&D team, maybe you've done it. Like I worked on Bumblebee. I did all the R&D. The double did not do any of the R&D. I did it all. So like when she would come to set, it would be the first time she's seeing the rig that we're doing and the stunt. So she would be like, hey, what did you do when you did this? So I would then say, okay, when I did this on stage, blah, blah, like, here are the things you need to know. Here are the things that you shouldn't do. This is what I did and how I performed it and what we sent the director. So like, try to do that. And then like, you know, let me know if you have questions along the way. I'll be here to help.
Because you're screaming, falling off a building.
So there's a lot of situations like that where you're like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. And there's also a lot of situations where you're called for a job and you don't necessarily have any idea what's involved with the job until you get there on the day and they say, oh, hey, by the way, like we're gonna rappel you off this building today. And you're like, oh, okay, great.
So are you just like innately not, you just don't have this fear that most of us would have? Like if you're telling me, you know, you're gonna rappel off this building today.
I think that majority of some people have a go with the flow mentality around dangerous things. And you kind of have to have that, whether it's bred into you by working in movies or you had it originally. I think that most of us are kind of those people that if you were at a party and somebody was like, hey, like, can anybody jump over that wall over there? You're like the first person to be like, yeah, I'll try it. I don't know.
You don't think about injuries? I know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely, like I had a shoulder surgery a couple years ago from a movie I worked on in Mexico. And we had done it a bunch of times with mats and it was great, but the director didn't want to paint out the mats. So we removed the mats. We dug out, I was getting thrown off a truck and onto like down an embankment. And so we dug out the dirt with shovels, like to make it slightly more soft. But I knew going into that, there was a high likelihood that I was gonna get kind of effed up, whether that was like hurt or just like bruised and a little battered and like I'll feel better in like 5-6 days. Unfortunately, it was the former, and it like ripped my joint of my shoulder, but and I had to go to the hospital and like get flown back to LA and get surgery. But yeah, I knew going into that, like there's a high likelihood that like this is gonna suck a lot, but that's what we're paid to do.
You know, and it's interesting because I know when I was younger, so my dad was military, so rappelling and all of that was just rock climbing, you know, shooting guns. It was all just part of growing up.
Yeah.
And so I stayed that way and just didn't really have like that fear, like you're saying, it just didn't really strike where, oh no, I can't do this. Until recently, rappelling in the Arches National Park.
Yeah.
And it was a different type where it was just a ledge instead of, you know, kind of a
underhang, yeah.
And I just went, oh my gosh, I'm scared to death, but I didn't want anyone to know. Because I was the one that had grown up rappelling. So I was like, there was one guy that was too terrified to go. And we weren't sure if we were gonna have to try to walk him back to base or what. And so I'm like, I'll stay with him. You know, I'm just like trying to pretend that I'm the brave one for him.
Yeah.
But has that ever happened where you've all of a sudden had a moment where you're just like, oh my God, what
definitely.
did I get myself into?
I will say that there are lots of scenarios in which I am afraid, especially the first time to do something. Most stunt people, I mean, me in general, and I think a lot of other stunt people and athletes, you know, we review things in our mind. We mentally rehearse, so to speak. And even if it's something that you've never done, for me, if I'm going onto set and the director says, okay, I need you to like run through this corridor, jump off the wall, do a flip, and then jump down 12 feet, like land and roll. Okay, I've never done that. All right, so before we roll, I then in my mind, I'm like, okay, let's do the visualization of this entire scene correctly, exactly what you're gonna do. How are your feet gonna hit the wall? Which foot is going first? So you're visualizing the entire thing so that you're not just ever winging it. And so when you get through that first take, I mean, maybe it's a little screwed up, maybe you're a little wonky here and there, but at least now you've kind of like, okay, I've done it once. You can take a deep breath, and now you know exactly what you need to do. And you might get notes, and then you go back into your mind and you're like, okay, let me revisualize based on what the director said and maybe my stunt coordinator, and let's do this again. But I will say the first time doing anything is always the most nerve-wracking, because you do have that like heightened sense of anxiety of like, okay, is this gonna be what they want? Am I gonna do it correctly? Am I gonna be okay? And then once you're like, oh, okay, that was way easier than I thought. And also like, it's just nervous being on set with so many people. They're all looking at you, you know? So yeah, there's always nerves and fear. But I guess I'm in the business of overcoming fears.
Was there any film that stands out as your favorite, or any scene from?
I loved working on Transformers 4. It was probably one of my favorite movies. I doubled Nicola Peltz on that, who played Mark Wahlberg's daughter. In that movie, we went to China, to Hong Kong, we shot in Chicago, we shot in Washington State. So we got to go to some incredible places. We also shot in Detroit. So we lived in all these different cities, and it was awesome. I mean, we spent a month in Hong Kong living at a JW Marriott. It was very nice, the breakfast buffet, excellent. But so, I mean, outside of the experience on the movie, being in all these cool places, you're also getting to be like a local in all these really wild places that you would never have the experience to do if you were just like living a normal life or working in an office. So those things combined is so like fun and cool. And then the whole cast on that movie was super fun. Nicola is amazing. We had Stanley Tucci. Mark Wahlberg is like a gem. I love him. So, and Michael Bay, despite the flack that he gets, is actually quite a nice guy, especially behind closed doors. So I love that movie because of the camaraderie, also the places that we got to go. And there was a lot of really fun scenes that I got to do as well, like traversing on a wire super high up in the air. We did a lot of cool car scenes in that as well.
So as far as like relationships then, like you're on the road, you're this fearless woman, like how does that affect relationships?
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely be difficult, especially I've done a lot of movies where I'm gone for 8 or 9 months a year, and those can be really challenging, especially if you're on a traveling movie where it's out of the country. I spent about 3.5 years in Atlanta, on and off, on different movies, but those were like 6 to 8 months. So at least you're like in an area where you can fly back to LA on a weekend if you need to. The most important thing in keeping relationships when you're working in the film industry is like overly communicating, but also really setting time aside to make sure that you're communicating, you're talking, you're texting. I mean, it's a long distance relationship for anyone that works in movies and film, unless you're bringing your family with you on the road, which is very few and far between. So I think you just have to be more aware of how you're spending your time and how much time you're giving your partner. It can definitely be challenging for a lot of people. Luckily, I've never run into being in a relationship where that became like a make or break of the relationship, but you definitely have to work a lot harder because you're not seeing each other. And when you're on a movie, you're working 12 to 16 hours a day. So there isn't even time for you to have time to yourself, let alone like set time aside usually for a significant other or children if you had a whole family. So it is really hard because if you're on set at 6 a.m. and you go home at 10 p.m., like the only thing you want to do is like maybe put some food in your mouth and then go to sleep. So it can be incredibly difficult for anyone in a relationship, especially if you have kids, which I don't. But I've definitely seen it cause a lot of destruction to a lot of families. But also I've seen some people really put in the extra effort of like, oh no, every day we FaceTime, every day we do this. We bring, you know, there's some families that I know that, no, we bring the kids every 2 weeks and they come visit, or a lot of people did homeschooling. So there's ways to make it work, but it's definitely challenging and you have to be on board with that to be working in this industry.
And when you're at a party and you say to some guy, I'm a stunt woman, like, are they intimidated or?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think something, oh my God, that's really cool, but then like, oh, okay. They're like maybe really cool, but also like scary.
Yeah, because guys don't really want to admit.
Well, also they don't want to be one-upped, so there is that.
Has that ever come into your dating relationship?
I mean, you know, it's like if you're the coolest person in the room and the guy isn't, then they're like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to be like I don't want to be like, you know, have everyone talk to you and nobody talk to me. So
has it ever been like in your relationship where it's like feels almost competitive? Like
definitely,
really, like
yeah.
You met some guys that are
for
like,
sure.
Well, I could do that too.
Yeah, definitely.
And then how do you handle that? Or like that's not for me? Or is that a red flag? I guess.
Yeah, a little bit of
it is. And what would be the ideal kind of relationship?
Yeah, somebody that's like matches the confidence. Yeah, because also you can't have someone that's insecure. If you're in the public eye and you have a cool job, so to speak, you know, if you're dating someone that's insecure, that will never ever work. Yeah. You know, someone has to also be wildly confident in order to match that lifestyle.
Yeah. Or I'd say wildly supportive, maybe.
Supportive and also confident in themselves.
They're comfortable behind the scenes or not in the one that's kind of out there and known or something.
Yeah.
I think that works too. But I also, you mentioned like the job in front of the camera. So was you're transitioning or have been working already as a host as well for travel. Did that love of travel come because of the stunt jobs and seeing all the world, or was that before?
No, it was first. I mean, I traveled a lot as a kid with my parents, not internationally, but Canada, Mexico, all over the US to the national parks. And I always loved travel. We had property in San Felipe, Mexico as a kid, and so we went there quite often, and I would always plan the trips. And then, you know, when Samantha Brown got on TV and had her travel show, I want to do that, but I want it to be adventurous. I don't want to just talk about hotels. Women can do all kinds of stuff. Let's do that. And so years and years ago, I wrote like a pilot about World Heritage Adventures is what it was called. Basically what I'm doing now, but more international. So World Heritage sites all over the world, adventure travel. At the time I was gonna go with my girlfriend, but so that was like when I was in college. But when I was in college, I didn't live in LA, and I had no idea how you make a TV show. So it sat in like a folder for years until I was on Transformers. And the guy I was dating at the time was like, well, what are you doing with that piece of paper? Just like make a show. And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds like, okay, I guess I'll like shoot a pilot. And so that's where like YouTube and all the video stuff that I do now was birthed. Basically, I just needed somebody to say like, hey, stop waiting around and like go and make something.
Oh, that's amazing. And so with all this travel, and you mentioned like hotels and you didn't want to just do hotels, but is there any place, like what are some of the places that you've loved the most, whether it's in the dirt somewhere or is it like a Four Seasons somewhere?
Yeah. Last year, I guess it was a year and a half ago now, I went and stayed with the Hadzabe tribe in Tanzania. They're one of the last hunter-gatherer tribes in all of Africa. They live still traditionally. So that one was dirt. But I stayed with them for 4 or 5 days with my good friend that's an anthropologist. And we just experienced their way of life. We went out hunting with the men and gathering with the women. They have a lot of scarcity where they live, and they have drought conditions. So gathering water was like a 3.5-mile walk. For hunting what they were hunting, and I almost got one animal, but birds and squirrels for their whole village, which was like 25 people. So that's one of my favorite experiences. And I had a similar one with the Sami family in the Arctic Circle in Norway, who are traditional reindeer herders. And so they also live traditionally, but in a very different setting than in Tanzania. So cold versus the hot desert. And similarly, just an amazing experience to see like this simple way of life.
So when you come home, what is the first things you want at home? Like I know for me, it's always like my pillow or my own bed. What is it
for me? I like my coffee ritual in the morning. I think always, and I usually try to bring like a coffee home with me from Africa or wherever I've been if they have a good coffee. But just that, like, you know, when I travel a lot, I get out of my normal routine, and even though I travel, I like my routine in the morning. I like get up at the same time. I like do my coffee. I do my yoga or my workout. And so when I'm traveling a lot, you're just a little off kiltered. So it's just like a nice reset for me to be home. I also love my comforter, but
your comforter?
Yeah. But those are kind of the staples, is just kind of just having a routine again and getting back into exercising and like feeling like my body is a little bit more out of whack. Last year I did a lot. I did a month straight, Sweden, Uzbekistan, Turkey, all back to back. And at the end of that, I was like, whoa, that trip was maybe slightly too long.
So what does wellness like at home then look like? And what kind of advice can you give for people who kind of are in crazy seasons of their life?
It is important to schedule your day. I go to the gym every day. Or if I don't have time to go to the gym, I know that I'm setting aside time to do some sort of physical activity, whether that's walking around the block or playing a game of pickleball or something, like just anything. I think it's really important that we move our bodies. Most of us sit way too much, whether that's in our car or at our desk. The lack of movement is death. So if we're not moving, it's really bad for us.
And for you, is home like a sanctuary place, or are you kind of like, it's just a place to rest my head?
Yeah, more so a place to rest my head. I'm pretty good at just kind of picking up and making it feel like home wherever I am. So while sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I had this or that, I'm also usually pretty adaptable to being in new places.
Is your own space filled with treasures from around the world then?
Yeah, I have a lot of photographs. I call it like my National Geographic wall. I have like me with a grizzly bear, like elephants, me with the tribe in Africa, the Sami people, and then just like some spectacular landscapes from my travels. And then I have all my awards from all the different TV shows and things that I've won. And I have a weapon wall as well. So I don't really collect a lot of tchotchkes when I travel. When I was younger, I collected coffee mugs. And then I was like, no more tchotchkes. But something that I do collect are weapons. So I have like a spear from Tanzania. I have a boomerang from Australia. I have like a saber knife from Turkey. And I have like a weapon from Uzbekistan, and I need a few more things too.
So now you are making dating really hard because they walk in and there's a weapon wall.
True.
Yeah, I can just imagine what they're thinking. Just don't make her angry, whatever you do.
Luckily, my current partner is very confident and doesn't mind, so it's good.
So last couple of questions I have for you. If you had to describe your life in one word, what would it be?
One word? I would say the most interesting woman in the world, but that's not one word, so...
Fascinating would be a word.
Fascinating, yeah, for sure.
I love that though, the most interesting. Yeah. Do you feel like there's a lot more to accomplish, or what's the next chapters?
Yeah, I think there's always more to accomplish. That's just the way that I live life, is what's the next thing that we're going to do. I'm also writing a book right now on the 100 best hikes in the world. Oh, wow. So, and I don't know what will be next, but there will always be a next bigger thing that I am going to do. And sustainability, conservation, all that stuff is really important to me. So I definitely want to spend more time giving back to the community, to wildlife, and to the environment in the years to come too.
Okay, this has been so fascinating. I could ask you so many more questions. I actually met Halle Berry's stunt double at an event one day. And
amazing.
She was telling me, there's a lack of women of color on the stunt side, and she was telling me how to get into it. She said, start renting a car and taking it and doing crazy stuff in a parking lot.
Hilarious.
Yeah, she's like, because you can start as like a precision driver.
True.
What would be your advice for somebody who wants to break into this profession?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that you have some sort of athletic background and then go and train in as many disciplines as you can. The biggest thing that you have to do in stunts outside of being talented is network. So it's meeting one person and then finding somebody else that maybe in their network that you can meet, and just trying to get your name out there. It's even more difficult now because there are a lot less jobs because of the last couple of years of strikes and COVID and all of these things that have kind of crippled the industry here in the United States. So you do have to do more to stand out, just like anything in the entertainment space. There's not a lot of jobs and there's a lot of people that want them. So how are you different, and how are you making yourself rememberable?
This has been amazing. And I know I said I was going to ask you to show me just like a really simple stunt. So we're going to transition to that because we might need to stand up. Do we need to stand up for it?
For sure, yeah. So I'm going to have you just put your hands up right now. And what I'm going to have you do, and I'll do it first so that I can kind of demo, is I'm going to have you take your right arm and you're going to do a hook punch like this. So you're not going to come close to my nose because we have a lot of space here. So that's good. And then what you want to do is kind of take your knuckles and make them seem like they're going across my eyeballs, like you were hitting me right in the side of the face. But you're not quite sure. Go ahead and hit me. Okay, great. So that's basically movie fighting 101.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Game Day with Shay. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a thing. Catch you next time.